Welcome. So great to have everyone here. Thank you so much to all of our county board supervisors for being here, the public, for those attending online, media, as well as, of course, our esteemed representatives. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come here. We work every month in meetings and talking with us as a department head team and talking about Trempealeau County and how we serve people the best way that we can serve people, and also how we can grow and become a better partner to the state in growth. And so we wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you and kind of share from the experts at the table. These are all of the department heads from the various 20-plus departments within Trempealeau County, which you'll see across every county in Wisconsin. And these individuals are extremely talented. And I have the fortunate every day of being able to work with them. But when I need solutions, they're who I'm going to, because they're the boots on the ground. And so I think it's really important that we have that connection between what they see and hear and what we're sharing with our leaders at the state, and then you're being that conduit to the federal level as well. So these individuals have come together and talked about what it is that we'd like to share with you, and some of the things that we feel that are important. I talked a little bit about our government system as a complex system. I gave you the list of all of the departments that we have within this county alone, and as you can see, it is a very complex system, a lot of individuals with a lot of expertise that touch our constituents every single day and provide very professional services to our area. Recently, with the last consensus, if you had heard, they went through and talking about where's the fastest growth happening across the state as we're looking at population growth. And it was shared that Trempealeau County is only second to Dane County, which we wear that as a badge, and we're kind of proud of that, of course. But for a rural county, we started talking about, well, how do we tackle some of the things that come along with growth? And how do we be the partner for the state of Wisconsin? Because as communities can grow, that also helps the state, right? And we can be the reciprocal partner. And so when you look at Dane County, they obviously have access to many developers that can help in building. They have their own issues, but of course they have a lot more resources in rural areas, not just Trempealeau County, but rural areas across the state. We have different needs, but we have the desire to be a partner just as much as the larger cities. So what supports do we need to be successful? I guess all of you have heard many times about the housing issue, of course, the need for affordability, as well as just how to make it happen. The developer piece is just critical to our communities. And so that affects us every day, and it affects economic development. Again, that partnership between local and how that economic development impacts the state. Also childcare. I'll pass it along to Renee. Our Supervisor Lyons, did you want to speak on?
Certainly, thank you, Rebecca. I think we all understand the tremendous need for adequate and affordable childcare in Wisconsin. Statistics show that in Wisconsin, more than 50% of the state and 70% of rural areas have one licensed childcare slot for every 3 children under the age of 5. There's a need. The availability of adequate, quality child care services is beneficial to businesses to attract and retain qualified employees. And of course, families are more likely to thrive in communities and employment situations and remain in those communities if adequate child care services are available. According to, I read an article recently, an April 16th, 2025 opinion article in the Milwaukee Central Journal that says that child care is in crisis. Key points from that article were Wisconsin's child care system is facing a crisis due to rising costs, limited availability, and insufficient state support. Proposed solutions include stabilizing child care providers with increased funding, strengthening Wisconsin's shares subsidies, and raising early educator wages. Current challenges include low wages for educators, high copay for families using subsidies, and underutilization of existing programs. So we appreciate you being here, and we hope you can direct your attention to this important need. Thank you.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Certainly.
To you? First of all, thank you for your work. How many licensed childcare facilities do we have in Trempealeau County?
In Trempealeau County, that is a real good question that I do not know the answer to. Is there anybody from would you know, Jay?
I don't know the license numbers because those are, we would be able to get those through the state. But I know as far as certified childcare providers, we have one, to my knowledge, in the
One.
county, right? And that's certified through our economic support unit, through our 8-county consortium here. So there may be additional licensed providers, but I don't have that number right now, so.
Is it fair to say that there's deserts?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah,
Certainly.
definitely.
And those deserts would largely in the rural part of the county, or also we're seeing deserts in populated communities like Independence and Arcadia?
I think both. I think across the whole nation. I mean,
Right,
the whole county. And I think the state of Wisconsin is suffering this kind of thing too. But Trempealeau County, we're definitely seeing it.
We are, and I want to add that because this is the maybe the number one issue that's affecting, every other issue that we have been engaged in the past 5 years, probably. And I tell this story because just Monday I was in a tour. Marshfield Clinic operates 10 facilities around the state, mostly rural, and they take in Medicaid patients and special needs patients and all of that. That's the thing. And they have 50 dentists. They went through all these lists. I went through an hour and a half tour and conversation with dentists and with administrators. And at the end, as we all do, at the end I said, so what is the ask and what can I do to help you? And we hadn't even talked about childcare, and that's what came out of their mouth, childcare. And then told me stories of hygienists or other staff that they've come to work for them and love their work, and then all of a sudden have to leave because their childcare center closed. So this is clearly on our radar screen for sure.
I know La Crosse County lost about a third to a half of its childcare slots during COVID. Is that pretty much the same experience here?
Yes. We have a lot
And they
of-
have not come back.
And they have
particularly.
not come back, correct. As you know, the formula just doesn't work. The cost to provide the childcare and what people can afford don't match up, so and you go back to the whole ecosystem of economic development, for people to stay in the workforce and contribute to the growth of the state, the growth of our communities is critical, and to the growth of our businesses that rely on the workforce.
Well, I know that Governor Evers declared 2025 the year of the kid. We're concerned about whether the budget is going to reflect that. We're not particularly optimistic, unfortunately, on issues. I think both Democrats and Republicans say childcare is critical need, and just looking at it from different ways, which unfortunately thus far has meant that nothing happens instead of going one way or the other way or working together. But yeah, it's a small comfort, I guess, to say that both sides agree on the problem. Now we just have to agree on the solution.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we'll move into just like the supports of healthcare and the importance of healthcare in our county.
Tim Robertson, IT. I have nothing to do with healthcare, but
Do you want to turn on your, can you turn on your?
So, briefly, you already know that this is a strong issue for rural areas. We have 2 general hospitals in Trempealeau County. Both are doing okay, but for our area in particular, there's negative operating levels. And 47% of the revenue comes from Medicare patients and 14% from Medicaid. And with recent things happening early this morning, you know that impact it's going to have on us. We cannot afford to lose our hospitals here. They are essential to this county right now, and we're very much afraid of the future if those supports are taken away.
Well, and as you know, we all know, what we saw last year happen in Eau Claire and Chippewa Falls. 2 major hospitals closing, which affected all of western Wisconsin, and it has driven my office to be this is number one issue, and to me being ranking member in healthcare, which I'm like you. I have, I have no background and no business, except now we have such a need, and it is so desperately affecting all of, like I said, the whole region. And it's scary because it could happen at smaller hospitals. It could happen anywhere else. When we have a system that's based on profit rather than need, then this is the price we're paying. And so it is really concerning.
And the local economies impacted by those systems as well. Not only the care part, but the local economies is critical, not only to the state, but local, of course.
Oh, when I met people last year when I wasn't elected yet, trying to get elected, it was like it was maybe daily that I would meet a new person who was part of the layoffs from the hospital closures. And so then they were often like, well, I don't know if I'll still be here next year. I've got to find a job somewhere else in healthcare or in nursing. And that's why, Jeff and I both actually asked, and then being new, people were coming up to me from other parts of the state that were also new in the legislature to ask, like, how did that happen? And how do we, it's kind of what I'm hearing from you too about Trempealeau County, even though it's so close, people from every other sides of the state saying, like, can we get an investment in advance so we don't end up in the same position that you're in Eau Claire?
Yep. Okay, well, like to thank you for being here. My name's Kellen Nelson. I'm going to speak with regard to our workforce in that, I'm a farmer, agronomist by trade, and as well as county board member, and wanted to speak to the need for our diverse workforce that we have, whether it's coming from the dairy industry, poultry production, manufacturing, all of which are rather robust in the county. As I sat here thinking about what I'm going to say, it's like really there's something in every community that hits that need for that diverse workforce that we do have, and would just like to, make sure that we keep that. So it's something important to protect because we need all the pieces to make our communities move.
So
I
we
got a
appreciate-
phone call yesterday from my dentist's office to reschedule my checkup because they have been advertising for a dental hygienist since February and have not even had an application. So. Yeah, and that's La Crosse.
Wow.
I just want to say I appreciate you speaking for agriculture. My background's agriculture, and I love agriculture. Trempealeau County is an amazing agriculture county. The kind of productivity that comes from the farm fields is just phenomenal. And of course, you brought up livestock between dairy and poultry. It's just the competition for rent and for land is out there. And of course, you're growing a lot of high quality crops. But the workforce issue that's an issue. And I will just say that. I think we all recognize there's some real politics that are taking place when it comes to workforce issues. And, I appreciate hearing from you. And voices like yours need to be heard, not just for the 4 of us, but also for our colleagues in the legislature and also those in Washington. And I continue to work. I'm glad that the sheriff is here. Continue to share your thoughts with law enforcement because there's some efforts in Madison to try and tie law enforcement in with workforce issues as well. And I think we all recognize the fact that, we want to make sure that we have safe communities. I think we recognize that. I think we also, and I'll say this for myself, I think we have to have borders. and we have to have secure borders. And I think that conversation is long overdue, and it took place last November in an election, and it's continuing to take place. But I think there's also some other issues that are in play now, and we're seeing that in the legislature with some bills that have been introduced or proposed by the speaker. They haven't gone anywhere yet, but we'll see what happens. But I think that your voice is very important, and continue to share that and work with your fellow farmers and board members and continue to speak with the sheriff and law enforcement and see what we can do. But again, thank you again for the work you do.
To follow up on Brad's comments, what are you seeing in the agricultural area with regard to the impact of the crackdown on illegal immigration? Are we having ripple effects here yet?
I would, from my, non-dairy farmer, I'm a crop and beef guy. So I don't have firsthand knowledge, but I have many customers that I work with that are dairy farms. So far, I would say it's minor.
Okay.
Almost business as usual. I wouldn't say anything extreme has happened, at least as I have heard in the county. I would hope it would stay that way, and I think that's really the goal,
Okay.
from my perspective. No, that will change, I'm sure, in time, but.
Okay.
What about the potential cuts to various federal funding streams and programs like SNAP and things like that?
That's not something I can speak to all that well, I would say. That might be a Jay question.
Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of impact yet from a lot of the things that are being discussed because they haven't actually, many of them haven't gone through specifically. I mean, more of what we've seen is impact to supplemental funding, maybe some ARPA dollars and some other things like that. But and I should probably knock on wood because we may see that impact too. But yeah, not to this point. We haven't seen a large impact. So
I'm just going to add a book recommendation. If you haven't read Milked, it is a study of almost just entirely Trempealeau County. And it is a great book from a few years ago, actually, but it's a great book that explains the farmer's perspective, the worker's perspective, and it really opens up your eyes about why people are here and why they need to be here, and why we need to do all we can to reinforce their ability to be here.
Thank you. Well, I think a lot of us will be looking that up. Yeah.
Already.
We're just going to shift into talking about the impact, like Jay is saying. What will the impact be? We can kind of look back at shared revenue and the impact that happened from over 20 years of stagnant or decreasing revenues. You just think about your own budget and keeping that budget at your home stagnant or decreasing for over 20 years, and what your home is going to look like, and what your capability of taking care of your everything in your daily lives. So we appreciate the work that happened in 2024 to increase those shared revenues. I guess the piece that education piece, if you're not aware, the shared revenue funding stream for a county is quite small. As you can see, this is statewide funds. As a pie chart here and showing our total shared revenue coming in that comes to counties is a small piece of this pie. So we need to look at the whole piece of the picture here and looking at the rest of the pie and determining, okay, how are we going to cover our costs when we're looking at all of the needs. And of course, our funding resource is through net new construction. And that has really, along with the shared revenue being stagnant or decreasing, basing off of net new construction, has really been limiting to especially rural Wisconsin. And this is 2024. I can tell you the 3 years previous to that, we averaged 1.21% in growth. And when you're talking about the immense amount of inflation that we experienced during that period of time, and looking at how levy limits are placing these very strict limits on rural America, it's hard to imagine how we can ever compete and how we can be a part of the state's overall plan for growth and partnership. So something to just keep in mind, I guess, for everyone, and I like to share with talking with residents, and we're talking about the increased costs that come, that are a part of government, whether it's county government or city, municipality, village, is, there are costs that we work with all of the partners in our area. We have translators that we bring in. Our court system has extra costs, contracted services. We work with attorneys. We have to purchase vehicles for the sheriff's department. Our union costs are higher than and going up. We have software and technology changes that we didn't have a budget for 20 plus years ago, right? This is a change that has happened, and we don't have a means to incorporate these changes. Even a simple thing like you think about the individuals that come into our jail system and the food costs, how those have increased over the last several years. And insurance costs, our liability costs, and then the larger costs, of course, where we talk about maintaining facilities or infrastructure and roads, and how roads have, costs have ballooned. It's, and you go back to looking at this slide and saying, how are you going to fit that all in less than 1%? Across the state, counties and cities are struggling to figure that piece out. So we've got to be creative. I'll let Jay talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, so to Rebecca's point, I mean, we want to be, we know we have a part to play in this, obviously. So I'm Jay Hine from Health and Human Services. And so we want to be good and fiscally responsible partners at the same time as we're asking you to come along with us, basically, as we grow. So to that end, we do a number of things, or provide a number of programming options through shared services, partnerships, things like that. And some examples through our unit, and we talked about our economic support consortium locally, the 8-county consortium here. So that's one example of that, where you've got counties coming together and kind of leveraging that and economies of scale and better coverage across the consortium. But then also our Women, Infants, and Children's program. Trempealeau County provides that program also for Buffalo and Pepin counties as well. So we provide, shared services and that partnering where we can. And then when you think about volunteers as well, so when we're trying to get creative and kind of stretch those resources to make sure that we're covering services for folks. Our ADRC, for example, last year we had 60 volunteers through our ADRC in combination with some of our paid staff to deliver some of those services like, the congregate meal sites, the home delivered meals, the transportation options that we do provide. And so that's a lot of logistical and coordination, but we're trying to be as creative and resourceful as we can to maximize, what we've got. So one thing that I did want to mention is just funding models. When we talk about different services through different, whether it's DHS or DCF, different state departments, some funding models are great and have kept pace with what we need, like the Services for Kids with Disabilities, so the CLTS program, and some have not, like our Adult Protective Services, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, hasn't increased since, I think, 2006 or something like that. So so you've got the rising costs, but so to that point, I guess, is more about, talking about more predictable funding models. Even if it's, we recognize we've got a part to play too, but if we could kind of plan ahead a little bit more, that would help with our planning and creativity and that kind of thing. So so just wanted to throw some of those things out there.
I've been on the La Crosse County Board since 1986. In other words, longer than some of you have been alive. And I was county board chair for about a decade. But when I got elected in 1986, what the big issue that we were talking about? Unfunded mandates. Glad we solved that one, right? That is the problem, is that we go down to Madison and we keep thinking up all these great things for you to do, but we forget to send money to do it. The money for shared revenue in the last budget was great. But, unfortunately what happens is we do that and we think, okay, we've solved the problem, and then, we forget about that you have ongoing costs and so forth. So this current budget that we're looking at right now is going to be key to seeing what the future holds. Were we looking at a one-off that, we've now solved the problem of shared revenue and we'll go on and do something else next time? I hope it's not that way, because the one thing that you haven't mentioned in terms of cost going through the roof is roads. And I know we're spending a fortune on roads in La Crosse County, and I'm sure you're doing the same thing. So until we can be good partners, you're always going to be behind the eight ball. And I just don't see, even with all of the creativity that you folks have used, and I give you a lot of credit for that in La Crosse County, it's the same way. You think outside the box. But there's only so much you can do with creativity without there being some money behind it. But thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, I think this is a good, I've been trying to think of where I'm going to slip this in. And Steve, you've been in the legislature long enough too to know that starting last session, the majority party introduced this new concept of introducing legislation without funding, and then promising funding will come later. And we have a number of things that they then turned around, passed, good ideas, and then we've never seen the appropriations. And if you ask in committee, which I just was in committee this week, same thing, we asked them, well, is this going to have funding in it? Well, we're going, appropriations will come later. This is, and it's strictly political, it's strictly to take away some power by the governor to be able to make adjustments to a bill when it gets to his desk, because if it doesn't have appropriations to it, he can't do that. And I think it's important for the public to know that that's what's happening. It's not directly in what we're talking about, but it's a good opportunity to talk about when we talk about unfunded mandates. They have made it far worse now with that because they pass a bill. I don't know if it's because they think, well, we passed this bill, it's really good now, and then forget about the appropriations that they had promised, or what. But right, Steve, that never was the case before last session.
We'll talk and touch now from the expert on technology.
Tim Robertson, IT Director here. I've been in local government information technology since 1999. In that time, I think the state has always recognized the importance of the entire state's agencies being part of the organism, that if their secure technology is distributed to the local agencies, that helps. That's a benefit to the state. So they've been a good partner. Much of the first half of my career, their partnership involved a lot of grants, and that helped us fill the gaps so that we could get squad video system, or we could get a solution that cost a lot more up front, and then we could go ahead and pay for the maintenance as we go. In the last half of my career, that model has changed. The grants are still out there and still appreciated, but much of our software now is subscription-based, where they charge you the full price every year. And I don't know any customers who want it, and we certainly don't, but so that's where we are. And now it's impossible for us to make those improvements to our organization. Over the last 10 years, the IT budget has gone up 60%, but our levy dollar cost has gone up 100% because of these changes to how these things happen. The other issue we're facing is there's some monopolies out there, particularly in the law enforcement sphere. If you want to get law enforcement technology, you're either going to go through Motorola or Axon, and they're squeezing us badly. There used to be a lot of small players that could make things work, and they're being bought up and gobbled. Some of the fixes we'd like to see you strengthen the state procurement department and add some statewide programs for base applications, whether they be Office 365 or VMware, or for financial packages or public safety software systems, so that every agency could buy into it at a reduced cost, and then you'd have some cross-training and some ability for agencies to share the information they get from these systems. If you had a single financial system for every agency, citizens would have the same reports. The transparency for electeds would be similar. You wouldn't be having all these varied systems out there. We also feel like you're ignoring an opportunity to have us as a local partner. A lot of state IT support is centralized in Madison. We could help with UW, with State Patrol, with the courts, with the DA's office. There are opportunities for print services contracts for us to maintain equipment and those network connections, because we do it for police and sheriff's departments. We're capable, so.
Tim, have you shared these ideas with the Wisconsin Counties Association and others?
I've shared it with others. It's usually over a beer and not with other electeds.
Do you have something in writing? Could you put what you just said?
Sure, I could put that in writing.
Could you put together a paper for us and send it?
Yeah,
The Counties Association has lobbyists in Madison, and
Yeah, we'd like to
they're
see that.
pretty well connected.
Yeah, we'd love to see it. There's a great deal of cost. Whenever we go out to get a software package, Becky, how much time did we consume on a payroll system?
Months.
And if there was just a state contract for a payroll system that everybody could get in and X amount per citizen, we just pay that and away we go. So, yeah, we'd really love an assist in that regard, and we could make a trade. We'll give you more support at the local level.
Well, I encourage you to put together a paper and get
Okay.
it to us. I'd love to see that. I'd love to kick that can. I really would. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. You talked about roads, so we're going to talk about roads.
So, Neil Olson, the Highway Commissioner, and I guess the main topic here has been growing pains everywhere. And one of the things for us as the highway, as you notice with the new building, is we're trying to grow, and with what's going on in all the funding is we've started to borrow and find other ways, as you brought up, that finding other ways to continue maintaining what we have. There's 19,000 miles roughly of county road system in the state, and of which 296 are ours in our county, that are supported by the local and state maintenance, relies on some funding from state level, county level, different things, different programs such as the GTAs, the LRIP, the new one that's been the AGRIP has been maybe not as beneficial to county side as towns, but nonetheless, it's all of our towns as well. So the IRMA, for example, I wanted to bring up on the state system and the level of service model that's been showed. You guys probably, our Patrick Vandersandon's been meeting with WCA, WCHA, a lot of joint meetings with some of you guys across the state lately. Particularly in our county, our money has been $1,581,700. It's been the same since, I believe, 2014. And based on the level of service model presented by the DOT, they want 90% of coverage, and we've been, last year's 2024 was 61.23%. So I guess what I'm asking is for, as we go forward, for you guys to take some of this back and continue to push our support with your support on to help at the levels we can to help the funding shortfalls.
This is supported by WCA, and so we'll touch on this one and then a couple of the others through WCA.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Haley Passo. I'm the county conservationist here for Trempealeau County and the Land Management Department. We are a merged department between zoning and conservation. So we're making it work between this, and it's a creative idea, kind of like going back to what Jay was saying. And we are supporting, along with the county board, which passed a resolution on Monday, and in the support of increasing the base funding of the 20.2 million to meet the demand, and especially in this rural community, we're very egg heavy, and in our conservation department, we work daily with all of our farming community, our producers, and even just, the general landowners. And it increases our tourism as well, because we work with our trout streams. We're one of the top trout stream classes here in Trempealeau County, so we're trying to increase and improve those areas as well. So having that support and moving that forward here to the state is a large thing that we would like to do, and we would really like to see that increase, since we haven't seen just a base increase since 2006. We've seen small increases throughout the years, but we would love to see that base, because we don't have that funding currently. Having that state funding would help with the levy as well, and be able to direct those funds elsewhere.
If I may ask,
Yeah.
how many conservation staff do you have? Do you have 2 or 3?
We have 3.
You have 3. And
Yes.
so the way it works right now is
We have 100%.
100% for the
So
one.
how it's set up is 100%, 70%, 50%. What we're getting funded is 100% and then about 45%
for the rest, for the other 2.
for the other 2.
45%. And then, if I may ask, because I've been speaking to your colleague in Monroe County,
Yes,
are you based with the NRCS?
we are not.
Okay.
We have a separate office from our NRCS office, but we work, we're trying to build that relationship and work hand in hand together, especially now with the federal funding.
Yeah, and
being
what kind of
so-
cut has taken place at your NRCS in Trempealeau County?
The staff has not been affected as of yet. I cannot speak for, what is coming, and that is on their side. But a lot of their funding towards projects that they work with, as far as the producers, they went from about, on average, 15 to 20 projects down to 2 this year.
USDA, NRCS.
And NRCS. So all the individuals that they were working with are now coming to the county to see if we can help. And our funding is very limited on that part too. So we're trying our best to help as much as we can.
And you're working with that gentleman right there in the orange, on the
Yep.
county board? And
Yes,
With the
he's
farm
on my
community?
committee actually, so it's,
I'm glad to
we
hear
work
that.
hand in hand.
Thank you.
Yes.
And really important work, as you can imagine, when you talk about the countryside here, it's incredible in the rolling hills, but also to talk about erosion in ways that we need to, and so they do very important work, and so we'd hate to see a loss in that, of course. And then another supported WCA is through mental health. We'll go back to Jay.
Right? And Tim earlier said I could probably talk forever on any part of our department, which I could, but I'll keep it brief. And I'm sure you've all been a part of and aware of the conversation about mental health and across the state and some of those systems. And so 2 of the things that we really have, especially across the state and speaking with other human services directors as well, is the crisis services and the community support program, or mental health services, basically. So those programs are, the funding for them, again, going back to, the unfunded or these aren't unfunded, but they're underfunded mandates at this point to be able to provide those services. And so our county board did pass a resolution in November, and we sent that to the governor's office and to our legislators as well, just indicating that their support for providing additional funding for mental health services, crisis, and community support program as well. So that's it's across the state, obviously, as you all know, but we see our boots on the ground staff are seeing it, directly every single day. So that's one of our asks is very, very clearly, and that's through WCA as well too. So good.
We're fortunate to have our judge with us today and our DA, so I'd like to pass it over to Judge to talk to you a little bit.
Thanks. I'm Ryan Radke. I'm the judge here in Trempealeau County. I've been the judge here last 8 years. This is also Mary Lee, clerk of court, and John Sation, district attorney. I think he'll introduce himself shortly here. Microphone. Thank you very much. So I've been asked to share some data about funding, and the term unfunded mandate is a kind of a buzzword. The court system is a prominent feature of a unfunded mandate or underfunded mandate. Just some statistics here statewide. In 2023, it cost counties, or the circuit court's cost was $237 million. And at the same time, the court support from the state was 28 million, so that's 12% of what the cost for the local courts. Some of the things that the state pays for are judges, myself, court reporter, the CCAP equipment or computer equipment, IT, the computer system itself, and then the county court cost appropriation, or what the state kicks in towards this request that the counties run a court system. Obviously, we're going to do a tour in a little bit where you're going to get to see that the county has made a major investment in the court system here in Trempealeau County, and you'll find it's a really great facility. Also, over the last 10 years, the increase of the county's portion of the cost to run the courts is nearly 6 times higher than the increases that were made by the state. And so any additional appropriations or funding for the court system is welcome and would be appreciated. A specific example in Trempealeau County, as you saw, second fastest growing county in the state, that's also reflected in the court system as well. We're looking at some data recently and looking at the 2021 to 2023 data. They use a 3-year average looking at caseload study. Trempealeau County is the 3rd highest caseload in the state of Wisconsin. And so we're at a high caseload need. The state is going to be doing another caseload study here this fall with results hoping to be in 2026. So not something that would be considered in this budget cycle, but very likely in future budget cycles of looking if there's another judgeship bill, that Trempealeau County is probably going to be in the conversation if trends continue, which there's no indication that they're not going to. And so, and also just an example or comparison, you're familiar with neighboring counties, Clark County, Jackson County. Each of those counties got a second branch in the last judge bill, and we're very similar in the sense of size and such. So just something to have on the radar in the future that's probably going to be coming at some point here that's just reflective in the growth that we're seeing.
I'm very familiar with those concerns because I'm constantly being lobbied by one of the judges in La Crosse. Because she's my wife, I can't get away from it. But I have a question for you with regard to criminal law, and maybe for you also. In La Crosse, I know we have a huge shortage of defense attorneys, and our courts are calling. I think my wife said that it's not unusual for them to make 1,000 phone calls before they find somebody to take the case. We did bump up funding for public defender and ADAs in the last budget. Have you seen any relief, or is it just as bad as it's been all along?
I would say I've observed maybe a continued trend in the negative direction of availability of public defender appointments. And so if you aren't unfamiliar with it, the public defender's office has an office. The one that applies to Trempealeau County is in Black River Falls. They cover Clark, Jackson, Trempealeau, and I think Monroe as well. And so then they have in-house attorneys, and then they can't cover all that, so then they have to sub that out to other law firms, and then there are just fewer and fewer attorneys that are taking those cases. And a lot of them, not only do we have fewer attorneys, we just have the competition. Why take this low rate pay to take this difficult case when I could maybe work and earn a lot more money? And so I think any work there to increase what people can earn is going to hopefully add to the attractiveness of taking those cases. But it's a real issue. It does contribute to a backlog, and I'm thankful that we have attorneys that are willing to take those cases, but I think statewide we're consistent with that, where you see a slow decline of people taking those cases.
In La Crosse County, we've issued contracts with individual attorneys to handle some of this, and also guardian ad litem and CHIPS cases and so forth. Has Trempealeau done anything along those lines?
We have not done a contract with a particular attorney or attorneys to take those cases.
Okay.
And I would say that we haven't seen the extreme numbers of contacts that La Crosse is seeing. Just yesterday, I was looking at a case that were a defendant who had cases in La Crosse and in Trempealeau County. And in one of that defendant's cases in La Crosse County, they've been looking for counsel for over 2 years. And ultimately, it appeared that the prosecutor just dismissed the case because ultimately she was getting revoked and kind of held accountable elsewhere. But they just didn't have a defense attorney to staff that case, and so ultimately the case went away, and I don't think that's in anybody's interest.
And are you having a hard time finding ADAs?
Yes, I haven't had to hire an ADA in quite some time, but there is a need for that, and I'll get to that in a subsequent slide. But I know that my counterparts in other counties have struggled. Clark County particularly has been, they went without a second prosecutor for quite some time. They've filled that vacancy now, but it's challenging. I think, and I thank you all for the support for pay progression for as public defenders and prosecutors. direly needed. When I started working as an ADA, I was making less than a starting deputy in Trempealeau County, and I didn't get a county car to drive home. And I also had to pay for my law school debt. So we appreciate the pay progression funding.
Okay, we'll hear from the sheriff.
So I'm Brett Semmingson, Sheriff of Trempealeau County. I'm also the Vice President of Badger State Sheriff's Association, and you all know, I think we have a lot going on down in Madison right now with the sheriffs. Thank you for being here today to listen to us. A couple things of priority for the Badger State Sheriffs is, Jay touched on it, and that's crisis urgent care facilities. That's a big one that's been going on for a couple of years. But another one is more recent, and that's what's happening with the funding for victims of crime and the services that counties can provide. So I speak as a sheriff in Trempealeau County because every county is affected. It's not just a Badger State Sheriff's thing, it's affecting us here as well. So the federal funding is falling off rapidly, and it's to a point now where we risk losing services in our county. The investments that we're asking will maintain essential supports like crisis intervention, domestic violence shelters, advocacy for children, and more recently, we've been adding child advocacy centers in for this request. And that's a big piece because they see 7,600 children a year, yet they only receive about $17,000 in funding. And we use those facilities to interview children who are victims of sexual assault and child abuse. And without that, it's going to be very difficult for law enforcement to bring justice to those folks. And it's going to also make it difficult for Trempealeau County to maintain a crime victim witness person, a person that can be an advocate for crime victims. So our ask is that the DOJ proposed $67.8 million to fund that shortfall. In the governor's budget, according to the Wisconsin Counties Association, the summary shows that there's $3.7 million allocated for 2 years. And we're just asking for support from the state to assist in making up that shortfall so we can continue to have services for victims of crimes here in Trempealeau County. So,
Nick?
Good morning, guys. My name is Nick Gamrath. I work in the Trempealeau County Land Records Office. I also am a board member for the Wisconsin Land Information Association, WLA, and I am their legislative chair. Last week, I was down in Madison, and I gave testimony in the Housing and Real Estate Committee in the Assembly on AB 216. And what AB 216 is asking for an increase in funding for the WLIP program, which is the Wisconsin Land Information Program. I'm sure some of you have heard it or have gotten the email correspondence from me. And during that testimony, I spoke about the needs and the expectations of Trempealeau County, but also it highlights all counties across the state, but the effect it has on rural counties. And the majority of our people, they get their data and their information from our land information website. And since last year, we've seen a 44% increase in the usage of our website. So on a daily average, we're getting about 3,200 people daily using our website. And it's not just businesses or title companies, financial institutions that are using our website. We're seeing through our administration part of the site that people at home in the evenings and at night are researching their property. And it's important for us to keep up with these demands and the expectations every single year to offer that service to people, because what is their greatest asset in a person's life besides their family and themselves? It's their property. And if we can't keep up with those demands, we're going to fall behind. And then you know what happens? The public gets upset and we get phone calls like, why aren't you doing this? So just to highlight what the county has done here in Trempealeau is in the last 4 years, we have invested almost $800,000 back into our program, zero levy dollars. So it would be hard for us to keep up with that spending if we can't get an increase in funding back to the county through the program. And also, part of that bill increases funding back to the county general fund, which I have highlighted to Becky, which would then be able to help other departments out. You know, our department helps all departments. It's not just the people. So other departments, we can help them save costs and make their work more efficient through the services that we offer. And, you know, I would encourage all of you to sign on as co-sponsors at some point. If you want to discuss it more with me, you know, individually, I'm more than happy to have that conversation with you all. Other than that, I'd be open to any questions that you guys could have.
On that topic, and for everybody else, if there are bills that you know are being introduced or have been introduced that you'd like us to co-sponsor, just call our offices, and I'm sure we'd be happy to. Just, you know, we don't necessarily understand all the nuances, and so a bill that may be of interest to you, we may not realize that, so just give us a call.
Great. Thank you. We're almost done. We're getting there.
Okay.
All right, DA.
And I'll be brief, you know, you don't need to Or politicians. So I want to talk about funding for additional prosecutor positions, an additional prosecutor position in Trempealeau County. As part of the current budget proposal, there is funding for additional positions statewide. That would include one additional position in Trempealeau County. There's also collateral support for additional public defender positions. So it's not like so there's an outlet for that pump. It's not, we're not just putting more in, and we don't have an ability to kind of get those cases through. There's a collateral support for public defender positions as well. But Trempealeau County is it's the second most overstaffed county in the state. Understaffed. Thanks, Judge.
Pull that back.
Not yet. So we're at 52% of appropriate staffing. So practically speaking, that means that a two-person office, me and my assistant, should be a four-person office if we were to be roughly 100%. In order to get to 78% staffing, we need one additional position, and that's what's allocated for in this budget. We'd ask for support in doing that. We've talked previously about how fast this county is growing. I don't have time to get into the complexities of doing law enforcement in Trempealeau County. We have a diverse population. People in Dane County or Milwaukee County probably wouldn't think that's the case. They don't know how complex this community is, but there's a lot of work that goes into it from the law enforcement side, from the prosecutor's office side, and from the court side. So we need people to do those jobs. We're second only to Grant County, which is at 48% staffing, but we are truly and direly understaffed. We need another person in that office. It's accounted for in the budget, so we'd ask for support in making sure that gets through. So, thank you.
Do we know if that's still in the budget?
I was going to ask that too.
Anybody know? They took out 612 parts of the budget, so.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Do you know? May 9th was the date when the Wisconsin District Attorneys Association sent the letter. Apparently, they had only asked for 54 and a half positions, but I guess based on input from legislators and folks in the governor's office, they asked for more, and also their support from the public defender's office in requesting these positions as well. As I said, the letter was sent to the Joint Finance Committee on May 9th. So I think at that point it was still on the table. I don't know if anything's happened since then.
They stripped a week ago, a week and a half ago.
Yeah, it was right around then that they had their meeting, so but none of us know off the top of our head whether that was on the list.
I've been in contact with the District Attorney Association rep, who's at a conference this week, and she didn't tell me anything about that having been removed, so I think it's still on the table.
Okay.
All right.
I'm Jack Hay. I'm the Park and Rec Manager for this county. And since COVID-19, there's been a major spike in outdoor recreation and camping participation. So with more money coming into our county parks than ever before, to be able to hold up and stay afloat, we need more investment and support from the state. To maintain facilities, enhance physical, mental, social, cognitive well-being for our youth and all ages and abilities for our day users of our park that's going through a lot of transition right now. I think this will lead to more developments of outdoor recreation, especially if we're able to keep Knowles Nelson stewardship program where it's at. So it's a big driver for county parks and city parks throughout the state. So
I think this is one area where we look at, we've seen a huge increase in the use of our outdoor spaces, where we've seen a decrease again in spending. And this is one area where we can see a return through sales tax. And so to me, I always kind of question why we don't invest more in our outdoor, because we're getting a return, not always where we can see where the money's coming back in, which is kind of exciting. And of course, our state is known for great outdoor spaces.
We are, as a matter of fact. I mean, we've had an amazing comeback since COVID. Probably better than any other state in the country in our tourism. But this budget, there's talk from the majority party of zeroing out Knowles Nelson, and that's really concerning. And that, of course, has been a goal of theirs for a long time. So we have to stay on top of that, and we need your voices to let them know that that will not be a good idea.
Right.
We probably get more communication on Knowles Nelson than any other issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think people are influenceable on it more than some other issues too. I mean, it's tough to argue against it when you're really asked to do that.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty popular program.
Yeah.
So we're at the end. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you really so much for taking the time to be here. We really greatly appreciate your listening and engaging. I think that was really very thoughtful of all of you to engage with us and comment and ask questions. So we do appreciate that so much. Before you leave, and we are offering the tour. I don't know if you have to leave. I know you guys are busy, but we'd love to show you the Justice Center. I think that was before me, but I think it was very wise of of the leaders that were here on that time, because it was an investment in this community, an investment in the county, and they're investing in the rehab of the rest of the building, and it just makes a great place for people to want to come and work and want to be and live, right? And bring their money to invest. So I always appreciate investment. So I have a folder for you that I'm going to leave you with. It has resolutions from the county board that they are supporting Knowles Nelson, that other resolutions that they have brought forward, mental health support and such. I've put this presentation in here as well in case you want to look back and remind yourself. I put a Trempealeau County visitor guide in there. This is the first year we brought it back after a number of years, so we're working with all of our area businesses on promoting them, as well as the rural counties that are surrounding us in partnership. So. And then I put our tourism report in here as well, which is very positive. We have seen increases in our sales tax and our sales, our tourism growth. We were fortunate to receive a GEM grant, and so we've just finished our first phase of the GEM grant and looking at how we can continue to invest in that area and use our communications to promote Trempealeau County. And again, be that partner that would be driving funding back into the state as well. So before you leave also, we'd love to get a photo. Are there any other questions that you can share with us? Yeah.
I'd like to make two quick comments. To my knowledge, La Crosse County has never done this. So I give you great credit. For everybody to show up here today, this is very impressive. So keep up the good work in that regard.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't happen without you, I will say, just as a public, that I'm disappointed that we didn't get the other two representatives. So we will continue to work and reach out to them because I think it is important for them to hear from everyone as well. But
Yeah,
it couldn't
absolutely.
happen without you. So we know you're busy. Thank you.
Second comment I would make is, all of you have colleagues throughout the state with your various associations and so forth. Grab yourself a list of Joint Finance Committee members and contact your colleagues that live in the districts of those Joint Finance Committee members, because that's where the action is right now. And when that Joint Finance version of the budget comes to the floor of the legislature, we always make like almost no changes. We offer a lot of them, and they vote them down. So the decisions are being made right now. And, you know, I love hearing from people all over the state, but the people in my neck of the woods are the ones that have the most influence on me. So if one of your colleagues happens to live in the district of members of Joint Finance, they should be on the phone right now.
And I'm going to add that the budget that had got a public hearing no longer exists. And the budget that we see on the floor will never get a public hearing. So that is why it is so important to make those calls and make those contacts.
Do you have an idea of timeline, or you don't know how much longer, or? Yeah.
If you could do it by 1 o'clock today, that would be good. I mean, they've already voted on it, some of the small pieces of the budget. The bigger stuff tends to be later on and in June. Doing something in the next week or so, I think would be very important.
Great.
Is there a public document that shows where they're at currently with the budget? What's in it and what's not? Or
Yeah, I don't think,
You'd probably
not one they've shown us anyway, unfortunately.
Not where they're at, but you could access the list of the items that were removed in their first meeting so you could compare that to the governor's proposal, you know.
that would come from Joint Finance, that list of items that was removed?
All the media or.
Yeah, you know, if you enroll, subscribe to Wiz Politics or the Wheeler Report, you'd get that basically on a daily, report.
And you could ask our offices and staff to help with
Yeah,
that information too.
that's
I mean,
right.
Definitely.
My social media has one that just compares education pieces, because that's my area of expertise, but, you know, so we can help compile that kind of stuff.
Thank you. Get a photo?
Absolutely.
Yep,
Thank you
great.
very much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Where are you gonna do the photo?
Can I get one of those?